Captain Sarah Chen stared at the massive display screen in the bridge of the Earthship Harmony. The stars looked different here, far from home. 3 months had passed since humanity's first ship had left Earth to explore the galaxy. They had met other species, learned about galactic politics, and discovered they were the newcomers in a universe already full of life, but nothing had prepared them for this moment. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from her station. Her voice was tight with concern. "It's coming from that ship ahead of us." Sarah looked at the vessel on the screen. It was unlike anything she had ever seen. The ship was dark and angular, with sharp edges that seemed to cut through space itself. It was easily 3 times the size of the Harmony, but parts of it were clearly damaged. Smoke and debris drifted from several sections. "Can you identify the ship?" Sarah asked. Rodriguez worked at her controls for a few seconds. When she looked up, her face was pale. "Captain, according to our database, that's a HFY vessel." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew that name. During their brief time in galactic space, humans had learned about many species. They had met traders, diplomats, and explorers. But there was one species that every other race spoke about in whispers. The HFY. "Are you certain?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. The ship's design matched the descriptions they had been given perfectly. "Yes, Captain. The computer confirms it." Sarah remembered the briefings. The HFY were described as the most dangerous species in the galaxy. They were perfect predators, standing 12 feet tall with natural armor and claws that could tear through metal. In the past 1,000 years, 17 different species had gone extinct after encountering them. Entire star systems would go silent when HFY ships appeared. The galactic community had one rule about the HFY: stay away. "Captain," said Commander Williams, her second in command. "Protocol says we should jump away immediately. Every species we've met has warned us about them." Sarah nodded. She knew he was right. The smart thing to do would be to activate their jump drive and leave this system as quickly as possible. No one would blame them. No one would even question the decision. But something bothered her about the situation. "Rodriguez, can you get more details about their distress signal?" "Working on it, Captain." Rodriguez's fingers moved across her console. "It's not a standard distress call. The signal is weak and the translation system is struggling with their language. But I think they're asking for help." Commander Williams stepped closer to Sarah's chair. "Captain, with respect, it could be a trap. The HFY are known for their cunning as much as their strength." Sarah studied the damaged ship on the screen. Several sections were clearly destroyed. Whatever had happened to them, it wasn't fake. "What kind of damage are we looking at?" "Multiple hull breaches," reported Lieutenant Santos from the engineering station. "Their life support systems are failing. Engine damage is severe. Captain, that ship won't last much longer." "How many life signs?" "I'm reading approximately 20 beings aboard." Sarah felt the weight of command on her shoulders. 20 lives hung in the balance. Yes, they were HFY lives, and yes, every other species in the galaxy feared them, but they were still lives. She thought about Earth, about the values that humanity had tried to bring to the stars: compassion, cooperation, the willingness to help those in need. These weren't just pretty words and speeches. They were supposed to mean something. "Captain," William said quietly, "I understand what you're thinking, but we have to consider our crew's safety. We have 68 people aboard this ship." Sarah looked around the bridge. Her crew was watching her, waiting for orders. She could see the fear in their eyes, but also something else. Trust. They would follow whatever decision she made. "Open a communication channel," she said finally. "Captain?" Rodriguez looked surprised. "You heard me. Open a channel to the HFY ship." Williams stepped even closer. "Sarah, please reconsider. This could start a war between our species. Or it could start something else entirely." Sarah stood up from her chair. "Rodriguez, are you ready?" "Channel open, Captain." Sarah took a deep breath. She was about to do something that no human had ever done before. She was about to speak directly to the galaxy's most feared predators. "HFY vessel, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earthship Harmony. We have received your distress signal. Do you require assistance?" For several long seconds there was only static. Then a voice came through the speakers. It was deep and harsh, unlike any human voice. The translation system worked to convert the alien words. "Human ship, you should not be here. We do not require assistance from lesser species." The words stung, but Sarah had expected something like this. "HFY vessel, your ship is severely damaged. We have medical supplies and repair equipment. Our offer of assistance stands. Another pause. This time it was longer. You are either very brave or very foolish, human. Why would you risk yourselves for us? Sarah thought about how to answer. She could talk about duty or protocol, but something told her that wouldn't resonate with the Kethvar. Instead, she decided to be honest. Because you need help and we are able to provide it. That's reason enough. The silence stretched on for nearly a minute. Sarah began to wonder if the Kethvar had cut the communication. Then the voice returned. Human vessel, you may approach. But know this, if you attempt any deception, we will destroy you even as our own ship dies. Understood, Sarah replied. We're coming to help. She closed the channel and turned to her crew. All right, people. I know this isn't what any of us expected when we woke up this morning. But we're going to do this right. Williams, I want our best medical team standing by. Santos, prep the emergency repair kits. Rodriguez, keep monitoring their ship's condition. Captain, Williams said, what if they attack us once we're close? Sarah had thought about that too. Then we'll deal with it. But I don't think they will. They could have fired on us already if that was their intention. The next 2 hours were tense as the Harmony slowly approached the damaged Kethvar vessel. Sarah watched the tactical display, ready to order evasive action if weapons were powered up. But the Kethvar ship remained passive. When they were close enough, Sarah led a small team aboard the alien vessel. What she found surprised her. The Kethvar were indeed massive and intimidating. Their natural armor looked like it could stop bullets, and their claws were as sharp as described. But as Sarah watched them interact with her medical team, she noticed something unexpected. They were careful. Despite their size and obvious strength, the Kethvar moved slowly around the humans. They seemed almost afraid of accidentally harming the much smaller beings who had come to help them. Dr. Martinez, the Harmony's chief medical officer, worked to treat several injured Kethvar. The aliens watched nervously as the human doctor tended to their wounds. Their biology is fascinating, Dr. Martinez told Sarah quietly. They're incredibly strong, but their nervous systems are very sensitive. They feel everything more intensely than we do. Sarah watched as one of the Kethvar warriors gently took a medical scanner from Dr. Martinez. The alien's massive claws handled the delicate device with surprising precision. Captain, the Kethvar leader approached. Up close, he was even more imposing, but Sarah held her ground. I am War Leader Kethmore. Your assistance has been unexpected. I'm glad we could help. Kethmore studied her with dark eyes. In our history, no species has ever offered us aid. Most flee when they detect our ships. We're not most species. No, Kethmore agreed. You are not. This creates complications. What kind of complications? The alien leader was quiet for a moment. My people will want to know about this. About you. The council will be curious about beings who show kindness to Kethvar. Sarah felt a chill. She remembered the warnings about the Kethvar government. Is that a problem? I do not know, Kethmore admitted. But I suspect you will find out soon enough. As the repairs continued, Sarah found herself wondering what she had started. She had made a decision based on human values. But this was an alien galaxy with alien rules. By the time the Kethvar ship was spaceworthy again, Sarah knew that humanity's relationship with the galaxy had changed forever. Whether that change would be good or bad remained to be seen. Captain Chen, Kethmore said as his people prepared to depart, the council will want to meet with you. Such a meeting has never been offered to any species. And what usually happens when species meet with your council? Kethmore's expression was unreadable. Usually, Captain, they do not survive the experience. As the Kethvar ship disappeared into hyperspace, Sarah stood on her bridge and wondered if she had just saved 20 lives, or doomed her entire species, only time would tell. 3 months had passed since the rescue of the Kethvar ship. Ambassador Sarah Chen, promoted after her historic first contact, sat in her office aboard the diplomatic station New Geneva. The small space station orbited a neutral world at the edge of human territory, serving as humanity's first embassy to the galaxy. The promotion had come with a price. Sarah now spent her days in meetings with alien diplomats, trade negotiations, and cultural exchanges. It was important work, but she missed the bridge of the Harmony. She missed the stars. Ambassador, her aide, Lieutenant Commander Park, entered the office with a concerned expression. We've received a priority message. It's from the Kethvar. Sarah felt her stomach tighten. For 3 months, there had been silence from the warrior species. No attacks, no communications, nothing. The galactic community had been nervous, waiting for the other shoe to drop. What's the message? It's a formal request for a meeting. The HFY Apex Council wants to meet with you personally. Sarah stared at Park. Are you certain? I've checked the message 3 times. It's authenticated with official HFY military codes. They want to meet on their homeworld, Keth Prime. Sarah leaned back in her chair. In all of galactic history, no alien species had ever been invited to Keth Prime. Most species didn't even know where it was located. What's the reaction from the Galactic Council? Park's expression grew even more troubled. They're in emergency session. 3 species have already requested that we refuse the meeting. The Alterian ambassador called it suicide by diplomacy. Sarah couldn't blame them. Every species in the galaxy had heard stories about Keth Prime. It was described as a fortress world, covered in weapons and populated by billions of the galaxy's deadliest warriors. Ships that approached without permission were destroyed without warning. What about Earth's response? President Martinez wants to speak with you within the hour. The cabinet is divided. Some think this is an opportunity we can't miss. Others agree with the galactic community. Sarah stood and walked to the window. Outside, she could see ships from a dozen different species docked at the station. 3 months ago, none of them would have spoken to humanity. Now they were allies, trading partners, and friends. All because she had chosen to help rather than run. Ma'am, Park continued, there's something else. The message included specific coordinates and a security code. It's not just an invitation. It's a guarantee of safe passage. And you trust that guarantee? I don't know if we have a choice. If we refuse, we might insult them. If we accept, we might not come back. Sarah thought about Kethmore, the alien leader she had met on his damaged ship. Despite his fearsome appearance, there had been something almost vulnerable about him. The way his people had watched her crew, as if they couldn't quite believe that someone was helping them. Set up the call with President Martinez. And Park? Start preparing for a diplomatic mission to Keth Prime. Ma'am, are you sure about this? No, Sarah admitted. But I wasn't sure about helping them 3 months ago either. Sometimes you have to take the leap. 2 hours later, Sarah found herself in the communications center, speaking with Earth's president across the vast distance of space. Sarah, I won't lie to you, President Martinez said, her image flickering slightly on the hologram. Half my advisors think you're a hero. The other half think you're going to start an interstellar war. What do you think, Madam President? Martinez was quiet for a moment. I think you've gotten us this far by trusting your instincts. But this is different. We're talking about the survival of our species. I understand the risks, but consider the opportunity. If we can establish a real relationship with the Kethvar, it changes everything. No one would dare attack Earth with them as our allies. And if we can't, if this is some kind of trap, Sarah had thought about that too, then at least we'll know where we stand. Right now we're in limbo. They could attack us at any time and we'd never see it coming. This meeting might be our only chance to find out what they really want. President Martinez nodded slowly. All right, you have authorization to proceed. But Sarah, be very careful. You're not just representing yourself anymore. You're representing all of humanity. The journey to Keth Prime took 5 days aboard the diplomatic ship Aurora. Sarah had brought a small team. Dr. Martinez for medical support, Commander Williams for security, and Lieutenant Rodriguez for communications. They traveled in a ship that was clearly marked as a diplomatic vessel, broadcasting the security codes the Kethvar had provided. As they approached the Kethvar system, Sarah began to understand why so many species feared these beings. The outer planets were covered in defense stations. Massive weapon platforms orbited every world. The space around Keth Prime itself was filled with warships that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. Captain, Rodriguez reported, we're being scanned by at least 30 different targeting systems. They could vaporize us in seconds. But they haven't, Sarah pointed out. That's a good sign. I hope you're right, ma'am. When they finally reached Keth Prime, Sarah was amazed by what she saw. The planet was beautiful in its own harsh way. Massive cities spread across continents, connected by transport systems that moved at incredible speeds. The architecture was angular and imposing, but there was an elegance to it that surprised her. A Kethvar escort ship guided them to a landing platform near what appeared to be a government complex. As they descended, Sarah could see hundreds of Kethvar watching their arrival. Word of the human visitors had clearly spread. "Ma'am," William said as they prepared to disembark, "I'm detecting no hostile intent from the crowd. They seem curious." Sarah smiled slightly. "I think we might be the first aliens most of them have ever seen." The landing platform was surrounded by Kethvar guards, but they maintained a respectful distance. As Sarah stepped off the ship, she was struck again by how massive these beings were. Even the smallest Kethvar stood nearly 10 feet tall. Kethmore was waiting for them, dressed in what appeared to be ceremonial armor. "Ambassador Chen," he said, his deep voice carrying easily across the platform. "Welcome to Keth Prime. You honor us with your presence. Thank you for the invitation, War Leader. We're honored to be here." Kethmore gestured toward a transport vehicle. "The Council awaits. But first, there is something you must understand. What we are about to discuss has never been shared with any non-Kethvar being. The knowledge alone could make your species a target for our enemies." Sarah felt a chill. "What kind of knowledge?" "You will understand soon enough. Come." The journey to the council chambers took them through the heart of the Kethvar capital. Sarah watched through the transport's windows as they passed parks, schools, and markets. It looked like any civilized city, except for the fact that every citizen was a towering predator. "War Leader," she said finally, "may I ask you something?" "Of course. 3 months ago, you said the council would be curious about us. What exactly are they curious about?" Kethmore was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than usual. "You offered us aid when we needed it most. No species has ever done such a thing. This created questions. Questions about what? About whether you might be the answer to our greatest problem." Before Sarah could ask what he meant, the transport stopped. They had arrived at the council chambers, a massive building that seemed to have been carved from a single piece of black stone. Inside, Sarah found herself in a circular chamber with a high ceiling. 12 Kethvar sat on raised platforms around the room. Each one was larger and more imposing than Kethmore. These were the leaders of the most dangerous species in the galaxy. "Humans," one of them spoke, and the translation system identified him as High Counselor Kethvak. "You stand before the Apex Council of the Kethvar. Speak your purpose." Sarah took a deep breath. "Honored counselors, I come seeking understanding between our peoples. 3 months ago, we helped War Leader Kethmore because it was the right thing to do. We hope that this can be the beginning of a peaceful relationship." "Peace," another counselor said. "An interesting concept. Tell us, human, what do you know of our history? I know that you are mighty warriors, that other species fear you, that 17 civilizations have fallen before your strength." "All true," High Counselor Kethvak agreed, "but incomplete. What you do not know is why we became what we are." Sarah waited, sensing that she was about to learn something important. 10,000 years ago, Kethvak continued, "we were not warriors. We were builders, creators, nurturers. But that changed when our children began to die." Sarah felt confused. "I don't understand." Another counselor spoke up. "Our young are born helpless, smaller than your human infants. They require constant care, gentle touch, emotional warmth. But as we evolved into warriors to protect them, we became too dangerous to provide that care ourselves." The chamber fell silent. Sarah began to understand where this was leading. "Our claws," Kethmore said quietly, "can cut through steel. Our strength can crush stone. Our instincts drive us to destroy anything that threatens us. These traits keep us alive in battle, but they make us deadly to our own children. For centuries," High Counselor Kethvak said, "we have sought a solution. We have tried technology, genetic modification, even breeding programs. Nothing has worked. Our birth rates continue to decline. Within 1,000, Dr. Elena Rodriguez had never expected to be changing diapers on an alien world. Yet here she was, gently cleaning a Kethvar infant who couldn't have been more than a few weeks old. The baby, no bigger than a human newborn despite belonging to a species of 12-foot warriors, made soft cooing sounds as she worked. "There you go, little one," Elena whispered, her voice carrying the same warm tone she had used with her own children years ago. "All clean now." It had been 6 months since Ambassador Chen had returned from Keth Prime with the Kethvar proposal. The debate on Earth had been fierce. Some called it humanity's greatest opportunity. Others called it the most dangerous mistake in human history. In the end, President Martinez had made the decision based on a simple fact. Children were dying and humans could help. Elena had volunteered immediately. As a pediatric nurse with 20 years of experience, she understood better than most what children needed to thrive. When the recruitment drive began, she was among the first to sign up. The HFY had provided a small moon in their territory for the program. They called it Nurture Prime, and it had been transformed into the most advanced childcare facility in the galaxy. Human-designed nurseries filled buildings that could withstand any attack. The technology was impressive, but what mattered most was the human touch. Dr. Rodriguez called Marcus Chen, one of the other human caregivers. "Little Catharin is asking for you again." Elena smiled and picked up the infant she had been tending. HFY babies were surprisingly light despite their future size. This little one, whom the humans had nicknamed Sweetie, gurgled happily in her arms. She walked to where Marcus was sitting with Catharin, a HFY child about 6 months old. Unlike human babies, HFY young showed signs of their adult appearance even in infancy. Catharin already had small claws and the beginning of natural armor plates, but his eyes held the same curious intelligence as any human baby. "What's wrong, little warrior?" Elena asked, settling down beside Marcus. Catharin reached out with tiny claws, making grabbing motions toward Elena. Despite their sharp appearance, the claws were still soft and harmless. Elena extended her finger and the baby grasped it with surprising gentleness. "He does this every day," Marcus explained. "When you're not around, he gets fussy. I think you remind him of his birth mother." Elena felt a warmth in her chest. In the 6 months since the program began, she had grown attached to all 37 HFY children in their care. Each one had their own personality, their own needs, their own way of communicating. "Any word from the adult HFY today?" she asked. Marcus nodded toward the observation deck. "War Leader Kethmore is here again. He comes every few days to watch, but he never comes down to the nursery floor." Elena looked up and saw the massive silhouette of the HFY leader standing behind reinforced glass. She had seen him there many times, always watching, never approaching. The adult HFY seemed terrified of coming too close to their own children. "I wish they would trust themselves more," Elena said. "They're not as dangerous as they think they are." "Tell that to the rest of the galaxy," Marcus replied. "Did you hear about the hegemony's latest statement?" Elena's mood darkened. The Terran hegemony, a coalition of 5 species that claimed to represent civilized races, had been vocal in their opposition to the human HFY partnership. They viewed the arrangement as either human stupidity or a clever HFY trick. What did they say this time? They're calling for an economic blockade of human space. They want to force us to abandon the program. Elena shifted Catharin to her other arm. The baby had fallen asleep, his tiny features peaceful in slumber. "Do they really think we would abandon these children? I don't think they understand what we're doing here. To them, the HFY are monsters. They can't imagine anyone actually caring for HFY young." A soft chime indicated that feeding time was approaching. Elena and Marcus began gathering the children for their afternoon meal. The process was similar to caring for human babies, but with some important differences. HFY young needed a specific mixture of nutrients that their species had developed over thousands of years. As Elena prepared bottles, she reflected on how much she had learned. HFY children developed faster than humans in some ways, slower in others. They could walk by 4 months, but their emotional development took years. They formed strong attachments to their caregivers and needed constant reassurance. "Dr. Rodriguez," another voice called. She turned to see Dr. Sarah Kim, the facility's head psychiatrist. "Could we talk for a moment?" Elena handed Catharin to Marcus and followed Dr. Kim to a quiet corner of the nursery. "What's on your mind, Sarah?" Dr. Kim looked troubled. "I've been monitoring the psychological development of our charges. Elena, these children are different from what the HFY described." "Different how?" "They're more emotionally aware than adult HFY. More empathetic. The constant human contact is changing how their brains develop." Elena considered this. "Is that a problem?" "I don't know. The adult HFY are concerned. War Leader Kethmore asked me yesterday if we were somehow weakening their young." "What did you tell him?" "I told him that emotional intelligence isn't weakness, but I'm not sure he understands the distinction." Their conversation was interrupted by an alarm. Red lights flashed throughout the facility, and the emergency announcement system activated. "All personnel to emergency stations. Incoming hostile vessels detected." "This is not a drill. Elena felt her blood run cold. An attack on the nursery had always been a possibility, but the reality was terrifying. How many ships? Dr. Kim was already checking her communicator. 12 vessels. Hegemony markings. They're demanding that we surrender the Keth of our children. Elena looked around the nursery. 37 babies and toddlers were in their care. The oldest was barely 2 years old. The youngest had been born just last week. We need to get the children to the secure areas, Elena said, already moving toward the emergency protocols they had practiced countless times. The next few minutes were chaos. Human caregivers rushed through the facility, gathering children and moving them to reinforced shelters deep underground. The Keth of our young seemed to sense the danger and began crying in distress. Elena found herself carrying Sweetie and Keth Aaron while helping to guide a group of toddlers toward safety. The older children could walk but needed constant reassurance. It's okay, she told them in the simple Kethvar phrases she had learned. Safe now. Safe with Elena. The underground shelter was cramped but secure. 50 human caregivers huddled with 37 alien children, while explosions echoed from somewhere above. The facility's defensive systems were engaging the attacking ships. Dr. Rodriguez, Dr. Kim appeared beside her looking stressed. We've lost contact with the surface. The hegemony ships are demanding we evacuate and leave the children behind. Elena held Sweetie closer. The infant had stopped crying and was looking up at her with large, trusting eyes. That's not happening. Elena, I understand how you feel, but we need to consider the safety of our own people. These are our people too, Elena said firmly. We've been caring for these children for months. They trust us. We're not abandoning them. Around the shelter, other human caregivers nodded in agreement. Marcus stood up, still holding Catherine. Dr. Kim, with respect, none of us are leaving. These children need us. Dr. Kim looked around at the determined faces of her staff. She sighed and nodded. All right. But if the hegemony forces make it down here... She didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone understood the stakes. The battle above continued for what felt like hours. Occasionally, they could hear the deep rumble of large explosions. The facility's defensive systems were powerful, but 12 attacking ships was a significant force. Then suddenly, the explosion stopped. What's happening? Someone whispered. Dr. Kim checked her communicator. After a few moments, her eyes widened. Kethvar ships have arrived. A full battle fleet. Elena felt a mix of relief and fear. The Kethvar military was coming to protect the nursery. But a full battle fleet meant this was about to become a major conflict. How many ships? She asked. The scanner is showing over 100 vessels. Elena, they brought their entire home defense fleet. The implications were staggering. The Kethavar had left their homeworld essentially undefended to protect the human caregivers and their own young. Within minutes, the all-clear signal sounded. The hegemony ships had fled rather than face the Kethavar fleet. The crisis was over, but Elena knew that everything had changed. War leader Kethmore personally came down to the shelter to check on the children and caregivers. Elena had never seen him in the nursery before, and his massive presence was intimidating even though she knew he meant no harm. Are the young unharmed? He asked, his deep voice echoing in the confined space. They're fine, Elena assured him, scared but unharmed. Kethmore nodded, then looked around at the human caregivers. You stayed. Despite the danger to yourselves, you stayed with our children. Of course we stayed, Elena replied. They're in our care. Something shifted in Kethmore's expression. For a moment, the fearsome warrior looked almost vulnerable. Our own people we have never had beings who would risk their lives for our young. Elena stood up, still holding Sweetie. The infant reached out toward Kethmore with tiny claws, making small sounds. Kethmore stepped back instinctively. It's okay, Elena said softly. She won't hurt you. She wants to meet you. Ket Ketharan was no longer the tiny infant who had reached for Dr. Rodriguez's finger 5 years ago. Now standing 7 feet tall at the age of 5, he was still small by Kethvar standards but already showed the natural armor and claws that marked his species. What made him different from other young Kethvar was the way he moved, through the world with both confidence and gentleness. He was playing in the recreation area when the crisis began. Ketharan called Mira Santos, one of the human caregivers who had joined the program 3 years earlier. Come inside, please. We need to talk. The young Kethvar looked up from where he had been carefully building a tower with his friend Tommy, a human boy whose parents worked at the facility. Despite his claws, Ketharan could manipulate small objects with surprising precision. "Is something wrong, Miss Mira?" Ketharan asked in perfect English. The human-raised Kethvar were fluent in both languages, switching between them effortlessly. "We need to have a family meeting," Mira explained, using the term the staff used when addressing all the children together. As they walked inside, Ketharan noticed the tension in the adult humans. Dr. Rodriguez was pacing near the communication center, her face showing the stress lines that had appeared over the past year. The galaxy had not been kind to the human-Kethvar partnership. "What's happening?" asked Kethara, a 4-year-old female Kethvar who had been among the first generation of human-raised young. Despite her age, she was already showing the emotional awareness that made the new generation different. Dr. Rodriguez gathered all the children in the main common area. The group had grown over the years. There were now 87 Kethvar young in their care, ranging from newborns to adolescents like Ketharan. Mixed among them were 12 human children whose families had chosen to raise them alongside their alien charges. "Children," Dr. Rodriguez began, "we've received word that representatives from both the Kethvar Council and the Galactic Assembly are coming here tomorrow. They want to speak with all of you." Ketharan felt a chill. He had heard the adults discussing the political situation in hushed voices. The galaxy was dividing into factions, those who supported the human Kethvar alliance and those who opposed it. Some species had formed the Coalition of Free Worlds, backing humanity's right to care for Kethvar young. Others had joined the hegemony in demanding an end to what they called the dangerous experiment. "Are we in trouble?" asked little Kethvan, barely 3 years old but already perceptive beyond his years. "No, sweetheart," Dr. Rodriguez assured him. "But there are some adults who don't understand what we've built here. They think that caring for you has made you different from other Kethvar." "We are different," Ketharan said simply. "That's not a bad thing." Dr. Rodriguez smiled at his directness. "No, it's not. But some people are afraid of different." That night, Ketharan couldn't sleep. He had always been curious about the adult Kethvar who occasionally visited the facility. They seemed so distant, so controlled. Even war leader Kethmore, who had become a regular visitor over the years, maintained a careful distance from the children. The young Kethvar understood why. The adults were afraid of their own strength, terrified of accidentally harming the young ones they loved. But Ketharan and his generation had grown up learning to control their strength from the beginning. They knew how to be gentle when needed and strong when necessary. The next morning, the delegation arrived. Ketharan watched from the observation deck as 3 ships landed. From the first emerged a group of adult Kethvar in ceremonial armor, led by High Counselor Kethvak himself. From the second came representatives of various galactic species, including several hegemony officials. The third ship carried what appeared to be neutral observers. "Nervous?" asked Tommy, coming to stand beside his friend. "A little," Ketharan admitted. "You?" Tommy nodded. At 8 years old, he was one of the older human children in the facility. "My mom says this meeting will decide whether we can all stay together." The thought of separation was painful. Ketharan couldn't imagine life without his human family or his mixed group of friends. The children at the facility didn't see species barriers the way adults did. They simply saw family. The formal meeting began in the main assembly hall. High Counselor Kethvak took his place at one end of the room, his massive form imposing even when seated. The galactic representatives sat opposite him, with the human staff and children arranged in the center. "We are here," announced the hegemony leader, a tall reptilian being named Ambassador Seskatar, "to evaluate the results of this unprecedented experiment. The Terran hegemony maintains that the human influence has compromised the natural development of Kethvar young." High Counselor Kethvak's expression was unreadable. "The Apex Council will hear all evidence before making our decision." Dr. Rodriguez stood to present her findings. She had prepared for this moment for months, documenting every aspect of the children's development. "Honored representatives, our data shows that human-raised Kethvar young are developing normally in all physical aspects. They are strong, healthy, and possess all the natural abilities of their species. But what of their psychological development?" Ambassador Seskatar challenged. "Reports suggest they have been made soft, emotional, less capable of the decisive action that makes Kethvar such effective warriors." Before Dr. Rodriguez could answer, Ketharan stood up. The room fell silent as the adolescent Kethvar stepped forward. "May I speak?" he asked, looking directly at High Counselor Kethvak. The adult Kethvar studied him for a long moment. You may speak, young one. Ketharin felt the weight of every gaze in the room. Honored Counselor, you ask if we have been made soft. I would ask you to define soft. The question caught many by surprise. Ambassador Siskatar spoke up. Soft means weak, unable to make hard decisions, compromised by emotion. Ketharan nodded thoughtfully. I understand. Then allow me to demonstrate what we have learned. Without warning, he moved with lightning speed across the room. His natural Kethvar reflexes were on full display as he intercepted a small object that had been placed on a table, a delicate crystal sculpture that Dr. Rodriguez used to test fine motor control, but instead of destroying it, Ketharin caught it with perfect precision, his claws never touching the fragile surface. He held it gently for a moment, then placed it carefully back on the table. We are not soft, he said, returning to the center of the room. We have learned to choose when to be strong and when to be gentle. This is not weakness, it is control. Kethara stepped forward to join him. The humans taught us that strength without wisdom is just destruction. We learned to think before we act, and to feel before we think, added Kethavan, the youngest of the adolescents, but already showing remarkable insight. High Counselor Kethvak leaned forward. And what of loyalty? Combat effectiveness? The qualities that make Kethvar useful to the galactic community? Tommy surprised everyone by standing up. Sir, may a human child answer that? The counselor nodded, curious. Ketharin saved my life last month, Tommy said. I fell into the river during our field trip. The current was strong and the adult supervisors couldn't reach me fast enough. Ketharin jumped in without hesitation. He swam against the current, reached me, and pulled me to safety. But here's the important part. He was gentle with me even though he was scared. He didn't hurt me in his panic. Ketharin nodded. We are loyal to those we love. We will fight to protect them, but we fight with purpose, not rage. Ambassador Skatar looked skeptical. Pretty words, young one. But combat is not about purpose. It is about victory at any cost, is it? Ketharin asked. Then why are the Kethvar so feared? Is it just because they can destroy anything? The ambassador hesitated, clearly not expecting such a direct challenge. The Kethvar are feared, Ketharin continued, because they are precise. They strike exactly where and when they choose. They don't waste energy on unnecessary destruction. That's not mindless violence, that's perfect control. He turned to High Counselor Kethvak. The humans didn't make us weak. They taught us to have that same precision with our emotions and relationships. We can choose when to be warriors and when to be caregivers. And that choice, added Kethara, makes us stronger, not weaker. The room was quiet for several moments. Then Dr. Rodriguez spoke up. If I may, there's something else the representatives should know. The children have developed their own solution to a problem we didn't even realize existed. She gestured to the mixed group of children. Watch them interact. For the next few minutes, the adults observed as the young Kethvar and humans played together. What they saw was remarkable. The Kethvar children instinctively moderated their strength when playing with their human friends, while the human children fearlessly engaged with beings who could easily overpower them. They've learned to bridge the gap, Dr. Rodriguez explained. The Kethvar young can be gentle with smaller beings, while the human children can interact safely with much stronger ones. They've solved the integration problem that has challenged the galaxy for centuries. High Counselor Kethvak stood slowly. Young ones, Emperor. Dr. Elena Rodriguez was now 83 years old, and her hair had gone completely white. She moved slowly through the gardens of New Harmony, the city that had grown around the original nursery facility. What had started as a simple childcare center had become something unprecedented in galactic history, a truly integrated community where humans and Kethvar lived, worked and raised families together. She paused at her favorite bench overlooking the children's play area. The sight never failed to amaze her. Human and Kethvar children played together with an ease that still surprised visiting diplomats. A group of young ones were engaged in a complex game that seemed to involve both physical challenges, suited to Kethvar's strength, and mental puzzles that favored human creativity. Mind if I join you? Elena looked up to see Ketharin approaching. No longer the 7-foot adolescent from 10 years ago, he now stood nearly 11 feet tall, just shy of full adult Kethvar height. His natural armor had developed into an impressive display of plates and ridges, and his claws were formidable weapons. But his eyes still held the warmth and intelligence that had made him special as a child. "Of course, dear," Elena said, patting the specially reinforced bench beside her. "How did the council meeting go?" Catherine settled carefully beside her, moving with the controlled grace that marked all the human-raised Kethavar. The approval was unanimous. The Galactic Assembly has officially recognized New Harmony as a sovereign world under joint human-Kethavar protection. Elena smiled. It had taken 15 years, but the galaxy had finally acknowledged what everyone here already knew, that this was something entirely new and worth protecting. "Any word from the deep space sensors?" she asked. Catharin's expression grew serious. "The signals are getting stronger. Whatever's coming from outside the galaxy, it's big. Our analysts estimate first contact in less than 6 months." Elena nodded. For the past year, long-range sensors had been detecting something moving through the void between galaxies. The signal suggested a massive fleet, far larger than anything any known species could field. The galaxy was about to face its first external threat in recorded history. "Are you worried?" she asked. "About the invasion?" "No," Catherine said with quiet confidence. "About how some species might react under pressure?" Yes, Elena understood. The past decade had seen remarkable changes in galactic society. The success of New Harmony had inspired similar communities on dozens of worlds. Human caregivers now worked with young from 17 different species, while Kethavar protectors defended colonies across 3 sectors, but not everyone had embraced these changes. "The children are coming," Elena observed, watching the play area begin to empty as various young ones headed home for dinner. Among them was a group that made Elena's heart swell with pride. Tommychin Santos, now 18 and officially adopted by one of the human caregiver families, walked alongside his foster sister, Cathera. Behind them came an unusual family: 2 human parents, a young Kethavar they had adopted as an infant, and 3 biological children who had grown up considering their alien sibling completely normal. "Miss Elena," called a voice, and Elena looked down to see Kethaling rushing toward them. The 5-year-old Kethavar was small for his age, but moved with typical enthusiasm. "Hello, sweetheart," Elena said as the child scrambled onto the bench between her and Catherine. "How was school today?" "We learned about the old days," Kethaling said, his young voice filled with excitement. "When humans and Kethavar didn't know each other. It sounds so lonely." Elena and Catherine exchanged glances. To the youngest generation, a galaxy without human Kethavar cooperation was almost unimaginable. "Yes," Elena agreed. "It was very lonely." "But you fixed it," Kethaling declared with the absolute certainty of childhood. "You and the other humans came and made everything better." "We helped," Elena corrected gently. "But the real change came from people like Catherine and the others who grew up learning that different doesn't mean dangerous." A soft chime from Catherine's communicator interrupted their conversation. His expression grew alert as he listened to the message. "What is it?" Elena asked. "Emergency session of the Defense Council. The incoming fleet has changed course. They're heading directly for Keth Prime." Elena felt a chill. "That's not good." "No," Catherine agreed, standing up. "Elena, I need to ask a favor. If something happens to me, nothing will happen to you," Elena said firmly. "Don't even think like that." Catherine knelt down so he was at eye level with the elderly human woman who had been more of a mother to him than his birth parents. "Elena, I'm not afraid to die. What I'm afraid of is that this invasion will undo everything we've built. Promise me that if the worst happens, you'll protect what we've created here." Elena reached out and placed her weathered hand against his armored cheek. "I promise. But you're going to come back and help me keep that promise." 2 hours later, Elena stood in the command center of New Harmony, watching the largest space battle in galactic history unfold on the tactical displays. The invading fleet was enormous. Thousands of ships of unknown design, each one larger than the biggest Kethavar dreadnought. "Status report," called Admiral Chen from the command chair. Sarah Chen had returned to military service when the invasion threat became apparent, taking command of the joint human Kethavar defense forces. "The enemy fleet has engaged our forward positions at Keth Prime," reported Lieutenant Santos. "Initial casualty reports are heavy on both sides." Elena watched the tactical display with growing concern. The invaders seemed to have technology superior to anything the galaxy possessed. Their ships shrugged off attacks that should have destroyed them. "Admiral," called another officer, We're receiving a transmission from the enemy fleet. They're demanding to speak with the caretakers of the Kethvar young. Elena felt every eye in the command center turn toward her. Somehow the invaders knew about the nursery program. Put them through, Admiral Chen ordered. The main screen flickered, and Elena found herself looking at beings unlike any she had ever seen. They were tall and elegant with features that seemed almost crystalline. When they spoke, their voices had a musical quality that the translation system struggled to render. Greetings, humans of the nurturing worlds. I am Harmonist Veltar of the Shepherd Fleet. We have traveled far to investigate the reports of your unusual alliance. What do you want? Admiral Chen asked bluntly. We are shepherds, Veltar explained. For eons beyond counting, we have watched over younger species, guiding their development, protecting them from the darkness between stars. When we learned that a warrior species had entrusted their young to another race, we had to investigate. Elena stepped forward. And what have you concluded? Veltar's crystalline features shifted in what might have been surprise. You must be one of the original caretakers. We have studied your methods from afar. What you have accomplished should have been impossible. What should have been impossible? You have achieved perfect symbiosis between species with incompatible evolution paths. The Kethvar were shaped by necessity to be perfect destroyers. You have taught them to also be perfect protectors. The transmission flickered, showing scenes of the ongoing battle. Elena could see Kethvar ships fighting with desperate courage against the superior Shepherd vessels. Stop the fighting, Elena said firmly. If you want to talk, then let's talk. But end this battle now. Veltar seemed to consider this. Very well. But first you must prove that your methods can work under pressure. What do you mean? We have disabled the shields around Keth Prime. A solar flare will strike the planet in 1 hour. Only a perfectly coordinated effort between your species can prevent the death of billions. Elena's blood ran cold. You're using an entire planet as a test? The universe is harsh, Veltar replied. If your alliance cannot survive such trials, then it was never worthy of continuation. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Status on the solar flare? Admiral Chen asked. Confirmed, reported the science officer. Massive coronal ejection heading directly for Keth Prime. Without planetary shields, the radiation will sterilize the surface. Admiral Chen turned to Elena. Do we have any way to protect them? Elena was already thinking. The Harmony-class ships. If we could link their shield generators, it would take dozens of ships working in perfect coordination. The science officer interrupted, and they'd have to maintain formation in the planet's atmosphere. One mistake and everyone dies. Who do we have in the area? Elena asked. The tactical display updated to show available ships. Elena's heart sank. Most of the vessels near Keth Prime were Kethvar military ships not equipped for the precision flying this would require. Wait, Admiral Chen said, studying the display. There's a civilian transport convoy in that system. The New Harmony refugee ships. Elena looked closer and felt a surge of hope. The convoy was carrying evacuees from several worlds threatened by the invasion. But more importantly, it was crewed by mixed human Kethvar teams, graduates of the integration program. Can we reach them? Elena asked. Already trying, Lieutenant Santos reported. A moment later, a familiar voice came through the communication system. This is Tommy Chen Santos aboard the transport sanctuary. Elena, is that you? It's me, Tommy. We need your help.